Yep, I think we're live.
Yes, we are, and I forgot to wear a mask, and it's Halloween.
It's Halloween. Well, we're recording this on Halloween for anyone who
when
is.
you actually hear it, it's another matter.
Yeah, you'll hear it in a couple days after Halloween or something like that, a week after, whatever. Anyway, a while after. But
anyway,
yeah,
welcome, folks.
Welcome. And if you want to hear these things live, click over to YouTube, and we have a channel where you can watch them live, and even make comments if you want.
Yeah. Okay. But we did want to kind of focus today a little bit on monsters or
Halloween monsters
or creatures or
Devas,
non-human.
Nagas.
Yeah. Nagas,
Yakkhas, Nagas, Devas. Yep.
But also just the monsters in ourselves.
Yeah.
Which are, which I suppose all of those critters, all those those little spirits are related to, one could say.
Reflections of, yeah.
And how we work with them and how, the Buddha had his relationships with some of them. The main one being Mara, I guess. Although I don't know, the Mara was a yaksha or a...
I think it was a Deva. I don't know.
They were.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was I keep saying he, and I have no idea. This is where the pronouns, the they pronoun really plays in.
Right.
Mara showed up a lot, and we can learn a lot from Buddha's relationship to Mara, or how he related to Mara, I should say, because most of us wouldn't be that way.
How do you mean?
Well, we wouldn't invite Mara in for tea. We wouldn't make conversation. We would, anybody that's sort of bothering us, we would, or challenging us, we would rather not turn toward most of us, or anything. It's like, whether it's our inner critic, which I think Mara represents in many interesting ways, or anger that's arising in this mind, rather not have to deal with that, and yet, in not dealing with it, what happens?
Right. And the other thing that is different between the way we would see Mara and the way Buddha would see Mara is, the Buddha says, I see you, Mara. I see that you are Mara, that you are the trickster in this sense. You're the Lord of Death, that you are, this kind of being that's trying to get me off the path. Whereas for most of us, we're not going to be aware of that. Mara comes up all the time in big and small ways in our lives, in ways that just distract us. And we don't see it as Mara, as it were, as Mara. We don't see it as something that's trying to pull us away from what we should be doing. We see it as fun, or as, just something else to do, as something that, a distraction, whatever.
Or we take it very personally and make it, who we are, and especially when Mara shows its face in ways that are not pleasant, we want to get rid of it as much as possible. And there's this story. I don't know. I first read this story from Ajahn Brahm, I think, in his book, Who Brought in This Truckload of Dung, which came out 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
But he talks about, this benevolent king who goes away for a while and basically tells the guards to watch the palace. After he's left, some ogre, knocks on the door and forces his way in, and the guards are all upset and beat him up and the more they beat him up, the bigger he gets. And smellier, and he sits right up on the king's throne, and they just can't get rid of him. He just keeps getting bigger, and they're getting really frustrated. And finally, the king comes back, right? and he sees this ugly, smelly monster on his throne and says, "Oh, hey, how are you? Who are you? And what can I get you?" And he goes out and gets some pizza, or dancing girls, whatever, massage, does brings in some beautician or something to do his hair and
Right.
whatever, and all this stuff. And as he's doing this, the monster keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Until finally, it's just this little thing, and he can take him outside and put him outside the castle. And when that happens to us, generally we would be more like the guards, I should say. I mean, at least at first,
and this is the anger-eating demon, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think wasn't there a Star Trek about that? I think there was a Star Trek that had that same kind of.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would fit into Star Trek pretty well.
I think so. I think there was one. It's one of these beings that fed on anger or something like that, fear or something.
And yeah, I can imagine, and Spock figured it out, and
something like that. I don't remember but it was in the original episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm thinking back to my early days on like one of my first retreats, where physical pain was really unbearable. Sitting for so long, and what was weird was that physical pain was mostly in my shoulders, right? And which was weird. It's like, why would the pain be in my shoulders when I was, sitting on my butt? And you're fighting it like hell, and the more you fight it, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
And at some point you just give up. I don't think it ever got better in that first 8-day retreat, but after another retreat or two, I realized that it was just the tension of the experience and trying to fight the intention. Fight the tension. It was just creating more tension.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's possible.
We have these.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's what happens. It's like that's. I mean, and we were talking about this a little less directly in our episode last week around Papancha, because we just build stories around an experience.
Yeah.
And then we take it personally, and then that becomes who I am in that moment. I am this person with horrible shoulder pain. No, I must be doing something wrong. And, what do I do to fix it? And this and that, and it goes on and on. And as it goes on, we're just creating more tension in the body until we recognize that. And then suddenly things change. I mean, so in a sense, it's like the perfect example of the second noble truth. As we want things to be different, we try to make them different, and it gets really hard, and we keep trying, and the dukkha keeps getting worse. So at some point, some wisdom takes hold, and it's like, wait a minute, there must be a different path here. What can I do? So, when anger arises, or when some difficult emotion arises, how do we hold it? What do we do with it?
Yeah. Can we invite it in? Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there are two ways of inviting it in, of course, but yeah, inviting it in wisely in order to try to diffuse it, rather than inviting it in to get lost in it.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. I mean, actually, we don't really, we have no choice but to invite it in. It invites itself in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like, what kind of host are we once it's there? And that's the challenge. And as you say, I mean, the first thing is recognizing that it's happened.
Yeah.
And then accepting that it's happened, right? So this is where that acronym RAIN often comes in, right? So you recognize it, then you accept it. and then the I is
investigate something.
Investigating and be curious about it, and just kind of play with it in a sense. And that can be really effective. And then, the N is used to be for non-identifying. This, whatever this is not who I am.
Yeah.
But the first thing we notice is how we do identify, and then and I think that's somebody. I think Tara Brach renamed the N to forget what she did with it. It has more to do with compassion, actually, treating it differently. And as you may recall from a class years ago, I added a G at the beginning, which was for gratitude.
Oh, gratitude.
Yeah, it became grain.
No, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, in other words, the gratitude was for just the fact that I'm human, and I have these emotions. In this case, it's about emotions, right? And how we handle these emotions. But anyway, and sort of, I guess the other question, as long as we're on the notion of monsters, is, how else do they sort of play into the Buddha's life, but also, how does it relate to our own lives?
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. As we were talking about before the podcast, I've done a couple of videos sort of that are relatively related to this. More looking at the sort of historical angle of how Devas and Yakkhas and Nagas are used by the Buddha during his time to sort of, in a certain way, reframe the mythos of the day. Because he taught the Dharma in a very different time, of course, than we live nowadays. In a time when, these beings that we name here were understood to be, real entities that existed in particular places. With oftentimes for instance, the Yakkhas were associated with trees or natural objects. The Nagas also they were snake beings, or we might call them dragon beings, powerful sources of oftentimes harm. At least in the Vedas, there was a great Vritra, a great dragon or serpent being that Indra had to defeat. And the Devas, of course, are the gods who created the world and created everything according to the Vedas. And I think when the Buddha began to teach, he had to confront that whole mythic structure that he was born into. Even if some people have argued that he was not centrally born into the Vedic ideas, he was on the outskirts of that, but that's sort of irrelevant to the main point.
Right.
And so within the suttas, it's, I think, very interesting to see how the Buddha relates to the deities and relates to the Nagas and the Yakkhas, because invariably, instead of them being the really powerful beings that we look up to try to gain knowledge from and wisdom from and power from, the Buddha always inverts it, where they're coming to him, where the Devas want to know the secrets of so and so, and they go to the Buddha, or or some monk wants to know the truth of something and tries to go to the Devas, and he finally reaches Brahma, the great Brahma, the head of the Devas, and Brahma basically says, I don't know the answer to that question. You've got to go to the Buddha. These kinds of things, or in the Brahmajala Sutta, where the Buddha basically says that Brahma thought that he was the creator deity because he was the first deity or the first being that originated in our universe. And so being the first one, he thought that he created everything. And he thought that every other being that came into into being after him, he thought, oh, I'm responsible for that, even though he wasn't. So there's this idea that the deities are all essentially ignorant, and they're worldly beings. They're beings who have great worldly power, and we can certainly propitiate them in various ways to gain worldly ends, like more money or longer lifespan or bigger family or something. But at the end of the day, those are not
they're not permanent.
They're not permanent, and they don't have the same value of the things that the Buddhist path can give us, which are world transcending.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it's all very interesting how the Buddha used this mythos and sort of inverted it all to make clearer the point of his message.
Yeah, and then of course in the later traditions, you have some of these bodhisattvas, who can be really fierce and have all sorts of
different manifestations.
Yeah, and but it's a different kind of fierceness. It's not, it's a fierceness to wake you up, or it's a fierceness to like keep you energized and going, and then there's the protective aspect of it. And so I guess you'll go to some monasteries of later traditions, and there'll be all sorts of gargoyle-like figures around it, which are protective.
And these are some of these are specifically Buddhist, and so in a certain sense they're slightly different from the early Devas, who were not really Buddhist. They were just beings that had already been there before the Buddha was there, and were not, did not necessarily become Buddhist. Whereas in the cases you're talking about, the bodhisattvas, they are Buddhist, and so it's a whole different sort of level of being here that we're talking about.
Yeah, we were at a when we were in Bodh Gaya. There was one relatively new monastery there. It was a beautiful tower, and you get to a floor, and there was this one sort of almost like a diorama, like you might see in the old dioramas at the Museum of Natural History, But this was like all Buddhist characters and these wild creatures dancing around. It was fantastical. But it'd be great for Halloween actually to take on one of these things. And we could buy them in a Halloween shop. But I mean, it was really amazing. And you're right. I mean, they were all Buddhist. I mean, they're Buddhist in origin, at least, and the mind that comes up with these things. And
I should say we have a comment here I want to put up from Sundered Psyche. He says he's always had
werewolves.
Werewolves as a fun movie monster. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. The duality. Yeah, I love it. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, any of these monsters.
Yeah.
Werewolf.
I mean, it's like what is the book? The person who has two sides to him, Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, so these parts are, it's all part of us. And by trying to deny it and force it away, it's not helpful.
Yeah.
Whereas we just sort of see it for what it is. And, I mean, this, one could say, is a manifestation of karmic consequences, and we have choices all the time. Like, how do we deal with these monsters? These monsters that may arise as thoughts, they may arise as emotions, they may arise as all sorts of things. And if we deny them as part of ourselves, then then something that isn't going to help. On the other hand, it also isn't ourself, because so it's just part of our experience.
Mm-hmm.
And, if we see it simply as an experience arising and fading away like everything else, then we're not feeding it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and
And
sometimes things arise without us really even, without us intending anything to arise, but something just comes.
oh, well, generally that's how it
Yeah,
works.
generally
Yes.
that's
I
how it
mean, it's
works.
like
Yeah, yeah.
if we could control that, that would be another matter. But the only thing we can control is how we respond to it.
Insofar as we can control
And
that. Yeah,
what the intention is.
yeah.
So yeah, these are opportunities all the time that are arising.
I was also going to say that, I mean, you're talking about the internal experience of them arising within us, but there's
Yeah,
also the external experience of experiencing them arising in other people.
yeah,
And, certainly when it has to do with, let's say, gurus or some such thing, there are very famous, there are many passages in the early texts where the Buddha basically says, if you want to determine whether somebody is, really walking the walk, you've really got to live with them for a long period of time, and see them in different circumstances. And even, he says, see them when they become famous, which is, I thought, was very interesting. Um, because as we all know, people who may be, very meek and mild in one circumstance, put them in another circumstance,
right.
and all of a sudden,
Monsters
the
come out.
werewolf, the werewolf comes out,
Yeah,
or the greed comes out, or whatever it might be, or the guru in, in seclusion with, somebody is somehow is suddenly a different person. And I think these are all things that we as seekers and learners have to be aware of, that people do have their different sides,
yeah. Sadly,
sadly, and so we have to be on the lookout for those. Ideally, they don't. I mean, ideally, somebody is, is as we might say, pure all the way through, but it takes a long time to be able to know whether somebody is that way. And all of us that I know of are, various, have our impurities. We're not
well, yeah, and
we're
then I
not
mean,
perfect.
it's a whole other discussion, of course.
Mm,
Whoops. Um, that's a whole other discussion in the sense that uh, somebody, there are any number of cases of people who are really great teachers with great wisdom, but still have massive flaws.
mm-hmm.
And those flaws come out in destructive ways,
Yeah.
sadly. And they were there all along, but they were never dealt with by that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, right? Because what's in so we were talking about anger eating monsters, but then there's like what the ego eats,
Mm.
right? And uh, if the ego is fed by a student's
Praise and stuff. Yeah.
praise and all of that, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I must be a great teacher, and all of that, and it's like,
Yeah.
and that becomes its own monster.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely does.
Really
Yeah.
is. So it's like,
Sort of
wow,
surrounding yourself with acolytes and
yeah,
yes men. We all know how dangerous that can be.
yeah, for sure, on all levels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot here.
Yeah.
A lot
Oh,
here.
yeah.
So
Monsters are around us. In fact, we certainly know that. Look at the news.
yeah, well, that's yeah. There is that indeed, and
And in a certain sense, the I think the contemporary, a practice, a quote unquote practice of observing Halloween is sort of an attempt to corral these what are essentially very scary, very dangerous elements of our own psyche and the psyche of others and politics and everything else, the natural world, and try to domesticate it and make it something that is childish. It's something that you sort of wear a stupid mask and get candy. And of course, all of us love our chocolate candy and so on. But that it tries to, I think, domesticate it. That's my impression. Is of course, it's also turning it into an object of capitalist purchasing,
Well,
buying this, that, and the other thing. But that aside, it's trying to make it fun and sort of something that we can all laugh about and have fun doing, and it is fun for many of us. But I think it's can be it can benefit us with some insight to realize where these things come from, and they come from a deeper and essentially a scarier, a more powerful sort of background. I mean, in this case with Halloween, from a Christian and European perspective, but it's a similar kind of idea. I mean, these are all the same kinds of ideas in that way.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So look at your monsters, make friends with them, and see what happens.
Yeah.
It may seem counterintuitive at first, but actually it's what our practice is. It's our ability to turn toward an experience as an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And not making a thing out of it and not blowing it up.
Yeah, yeah. In one of the commentaries, I believe it's to the Dhammapada, they talk about a couple of monks who have to go very far away to teach, and I'm sorry, to do meditation in the forest at night, and they come back to the Buddha and say that they haven't been able to do that because there are all these spirits, Yakkhas, out there that are scaring them, basically. And the Buddha said, that this is supposed to be the background of the Metta Sutta. The Buddha says, look, go to them with these thoughts of loving kindness, and that will defuse them. I mean, that will make them go away. And the idea is that works. That the scary, if we get scared, because they are scary, they're dangerous. The Buddha's recommendation is kindness, is compassion, and that can help for ourselves and for others.
Yep. And it does work.
It does. It can take time. I mean, and we have to be patient, but yes.
Yeah. Okay, friends.
And meanwhile,
have a good Halloween.
Yeah.
And
are you going to be having coffee candy with you or Halloween?
I hadn't thought about that. But now I'm going to have to go make some more coffee. Which, yes, of course, if you'd like to support the show, you can buy us coffee.
You can.
Buy us a cup or 2 or 3. We appreciate it when you do that, and it helps pay our expenses. And then next week, I guess we're going to be, we're figuring this out, but we're guests on another podcast.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if we can share that over to our side or not, but it'll be over in the Clear Mountain Monastery with a John Covillo and a John Nisabo, 2 wonderful young monastics. So hopefully we'll.
And then the week after that, Bodhi Paksha will be back as a guest talking about his new book. And a few other things coming along down the road. So a few other people. So until then, keep digging the Dharma, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
In one form or another. Okay. Take care.
You too.